So we put, as you saw before in class, we put the antenna on using this little screw. And it's important that the antenna come from the bottom of the board because that's where the metal connection is. So the screw comes up from the bottom and put the nut on using your needle nose pliers. Then put a little strip of double stick tape at the top and at the bottom, and then just press it down close to where the motors are, so these wires, which go to the motors, are long enough they can reach where they need to go. Now, there's 24 ways to hook up 4 wires to 4 connectors, as we talked about in class, and 23 of them are wrong. So, you ready for the secret code? I'm going to give it to you in 2 languages. One secret code is BYGW. So this is talking about the left-hand motor. So here's what it looks like in the continuous product. Okay, so we got blue is to the top one, and yellow is to the back one. So we call it forward and back. Okay, so blue is forward and yellow is back. So you could also look at it as B above Y, in which case it would look like this. The same code, B, Y, G, W. So this is the back of the car here, and that's how you hook up the 4 wires, B, Y, G, W. Now, the reason why I have B, F, R, L is, as you know, the people in China, they sent me the wrong boards. They sent me boards that don't have any of these wires on them. And since they don't have any wires, I'm going to have to solder wires on all those boards, which I've done here. And so here's what it looks like this. But notice all the wires are white. So how do you know which one goes where? Well, if you look really closely at this board, you see the way it says B, Y. So that's BF. So that's backwards and forwards. So the blue wire, that's if you have one of these boards, here's the code to decode them. What looks like blue on the colored wires is actually back, the back hole, and it's stamped right on the board. And then forward is the yellow wire, and reverse, which is the other 2 wires, it doesn't really go reverse, but that's what it says on the board. Reverse is the green wire, and, right is the green wire and left. So this is back, forward, this is right, left. So that is the key if you have one of these new boards, which I've soldered all these wires on for you because they sent me the wrong ones. If you have the original boards, then you just use B, Y, G, W. So we're going to solder those guys together and keep on going. So notice it's up on the stand so that you've got the wheels not touching the ground and they're not getting stressed. Okay, so let's get to it here. This is a nice thing to hold the wire so you can get them into position. And I'm going to start out by just putting solder on all 4 of the tips of the wires. That way they'll stick, because we already put solder onto the motor tabs. So now I'll put solder on the tips of the wires. The last thing we've got to do is hook up the battery. So the battery we're going to use looks like this, and of course you want to put a switch on it so we can turn it off and on. So let's put the car aside, work on the battery here. So I'm going to put the switch on the negative side. You could put it on the positive side, but see that we have these little tabs that stick out? That turns out to be quite useful, and so that is where you're going to put the solder on instead of soldering right onto the actual battery itself. It'll keep the battery cool, and the chemicals work better when they're cool. Okay, and now we're going to put on the switch. And now we're going to take the switch, we're going to bend it down, but I want to put some double stick tape on the bottom there. So let's do that. And just bend it around so that it's flat on the battery, like that. So now we got the switch on the battery, and now we're going to put a little bit of solder on the other end so that the red wire will stick to that good. Okay, so now we're ready to put the battery onto the car, but we want to have it so that the switch is facing forward or back instead of up and down. See, if you put it like this, so the switch is up and down like that, then when you press down to turn off the switch, you bend the car, and so the cardboard's going to bend. But if you put it like this, then you're pressing on the other side, and so it's much less stress on the actual car that way. So I'm going to put it like so, and I have the negative end that's going to go on the back side there. So I'm going to put some double stick tape 90 degrees away from where the switch is. You want to make sure you put it close enough so that the wires can touch. So that should be good like that. Press down hard because after all, you're on your jack stand. Okay, so now the last thing we're going to do here is we're going to solder the black and the red wires to the battery. So let's put a little bit of extra solder here on this guy. And we've already got some extra solder on the black wire. And the red wire is going to go onto where we soldered. And we put that little solder on the edge of the tab there. Okay, so now the car should be totally ready to go, but let's make sure the battery is off while we're putting the transmitter together. You see the way there's a certain height for the button right there? Now if I press this a second time, see the way the button is shorter? Normally when you press something in, that's when it turns on, like a doorbell. But in this case, when it's in like that, it's off. So leave it off while we work on the transmitter. So the transmitter comes with an antenna and screws and the transmitter itself. So once again, we're going to put the antenna on first, and it has to come from the bottom. But this is a little trick here because the loophole in the bottom of the antenna is too small for the screws. So here's the screw here, but as you'll soon see, it won't fit inside this hole. It almost fits. Well, all you got to do is open up a little bit with your needle nose pliers. Not too wide because then it'll slip away. Let's see if that's enough. Okay, so then it goes like that. So you got to go into the ant hole. See where it says ant there? Right next to that is the place where the big antenna is going to go, and you come in from the bottom just like before. And then just like before, you're going to try to put your nut on. So once you get started, get in there with your needle nose pliers. Okay, and that just points out to the side like that. Now we've got to put it on here, and again, this is double stick tape time. I'd recommend 3 pieces of double stick tape, the 2 front corners and back here. Rectangle, and just press it up. Okay, now we just had to put a battery on here, and this is the battery we're going to use. Again, we're going to put some solder on the battery first. Now, I'd suggest you put the battery on first, but you've got to have a switch there. Put the switch not close in, but far out, so we can bend it around. Then we're going to put some double stick there. And don't bend it as far down. You want to bend it before you put it down, like that. And that way it's more likely to stay tight there. Okay, so we're going to turn the switch off now, and we're going to double stick it to the bottom of the board here. And I'm going to have the switch right here, so you can be reminded that there's a switch there, and then it's easier to control the thing. Well, either side is just so you can see the switch, so you won't forget to turn it off. Okay, so now you got that ready to go. Now we just have to hook up the batteries. Now, if you look at this thing, this is the negative side. So we're going to try to get it. So we'll put the black onto the negative side. After we put some solder on, of course. And then the same with the positive. Okay, so you now have a working transmitter, we hope. Let's find out. So here's the transmitter.